Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Erik Tait.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And it's brought to you with the good graces of Manhattan Neighborhood Network and EVT Educational Productions. And as per usual, normally we're pre-taping this time Thursday before we air the following Monday. And so what we'll do, Ray, is try to at least do some analysis, commentary, and maybe a list of the stories that should still be in the news come next Monday, or stories that we think people should be paying attention, whether it's next Monday or down the road.
Yeah, well, where would you like to start? We have such a bountiful basket of topics.
Yes, that is true. That is very, very true. The question is, high on my radar was the Michael Flynn texting during the inauguration.
That now go ahead with their plans because we're going to lift Russian sanctions.
Yeah, in a nutshell, folks, even before the man had fully been sworn in, your 45th president, his soon-to-be, I'm not sure he was even appointed, his chief NSA advisor or whatever, was texting some cohort about some pro-Russian energy deal that was going to take place through Turkey.
Well, there was a deal that was in the works between Exxon and Russia for allowing Exxon to drill in the Black Sea, I believe, and areas of Russia itself.
Yeah, but there was some Turkish.
Put on hold.
The Turkish deal with the other Russian cohort is the one that he was texting. We're good to go.
Oh, the nuclear.
Yes,
the nuclear.
That's the deal, not Exxon. The nuclear deal. And so, yeah, he was just saying, don't worry about the sanctions. We'll be rolling back those sanctions. And so that's part of the supposed quid pro quo. And, you know, that was going to be high in the news. But, of course, you know, because there was the Flynn pleading guilty, right? Which totally goosed the Mueller investigation, put it right on the doorstep of the 45th president of the United States. Followed immediately by this bit about, oh yeah, we're going to roll those sanctions back. So basically, the Mueller probe was beginning to actually get a serious head of steam as it was lapping at the doorsteps of the 45th president. So what does the 45th president do, Raymond? Because he's very good at, oh, this is too close to my doorstep. What's my next distraction? What was his next distraction, Raymond?
Trying to start a war in the Middle East.
Translate that for our viewers.
Well, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, which the U.S. has failed to do for a number of decades now, and saying that he's going to move our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, I think will probably anger quite a few people.
It's
going to destabilize what little peace there is in the Mideast.
Yeah, right now, basically, friends, Saudi Arabia, friends, Jordan, whoever our friends are in the Middle East, were saying that's not the right thing to do right now. And basically because the United Nations and the rest of the international community said, yeah, we understand that there's a delicate thing about East Jerusalem and West Jerusalem, and Palestinians claim one part and the Israelis claim another part. People have been letting that become part of the peace process to determine whether that gets finally decided for these many years. As you said, presidents have let it slide. I know Congress voted to make that an official entity, but because of the delicacy of trying to actually bring about Mideast peace, nobody's been pushing to make that happen. Folks have been saying that's another campaign promise that he wanted to fulfill. I'm saying that is a turmoil and a bait and switch distraction, because immediately after he made that announcement, the U.S. Embassy, the State Department had to tell their people, do not send your children to school. Make sure you are protected at all times, because the immediate reaction from the Palestinians and the rest of the Mideast was, this is not acceptable.
Did he make that a campaign promise? I don't recall.
That was a major, one of his big major campaign promises. But there are campaign promises that you fulfill in a timely fashion, or not at all, because politicians lie all the time. They promise the moon and don't deliver, especially when it turns out it's not in the best interest of the country to deliver on that campaign promise. Yeah, he's still trying to build a wall, and yeah, he needed a major distraction from the Bob Mueller probe, and so guess what? He came up with the doozy of a major distraction by talking about recognizing Jerusalem as the capital and planning to move the U.S. Embassy, and whether he follows through on that.
But he has to know the turmoil that this is going to cause. What do you think? You think it is just a diversionary tactic on his part?
You're saying he has to know the turmoil this is going to cause?
Yes, of course he has
that answers your question.
Well, I suppose it does.
What
I suppose.
What
I'm
was
sorry.
the next new headline?
I'm sorry. My mind still works rationally, and I can't understand an irrational mind at work. And I guess I have to accept that at some point, that there is no rationale behind anything that they do.
But there is
well,
rationale.
there is a rationale.
Thank you.
But it's negative.
It's
a negative rationale.
It's not in the best interest.
It's not in the best interest of our country. It's not in the best interest of the Middle East. It's not in the best interest of the world at large.
There you go. But guess what? The headlines were Trump's decision causes turmoil in Mideast. So he got what he wanted. No Bob Mueller pros, no
right.
Mike Flynn headline.
Yep. You're right.
But in keeping with the ongoing turmoil that seems to come out of this White House, there was another story that you brought to my attention that I'd like you to dig into a little bit and advise some of our viewers in case they slept that. And it has to do with longtime felons who got convicted of doing bad things against the country's best interests, and one who should have been convicted for making sure a bunch of Iraqis died at an intersection during the Iraq War. Translate for me.
Well, there's talk about the White House, the CIA actually hiring.
Not the CIA.
Well, it's the White House. It's Pompeo.
Okay, but you have to put it in context. What did Pompeo say?
Well,
someone.
I don't know.
Team? Let's tell our people what the story is and who the people are.
Okay, the story is setting up a secret spy network, because as someone at the White House said, Pompeo can no longer trust the bureaucracy of the CIA.
Mike Pompeo is the current director of the CIA. And he's saying that, one?
Well, he didn't say it. It was an insider, an unnamed insider, was quoted as having said that Pompeo can no longer trust the bureaucracy of the CIA, and he needs a system, a force that will report directly to him.
Not our own
intermediaries.
Not our own Central Intelligence Agency. No. This is another outside group.
It's being planned, apparently, because the White House won't confirm this. But if it's true, our president will let us know, because he can't help but tweet about everything that he thinks is great.
We'll see.
So anyhow, the players are Mike Pompeo, Blackwater, who was
not Blackwater anymore. Okay?
It's not Blackwater anymore.
Because
the
they changed their name.
Of Blackwater.
That's a fellow by the name of Erik Prince.
Yes.
Whose sister happens to be Betsy DeVos, the incompetent, not any educational background head of the Department of Education for this country, folks. And who else?
And I think it was an unnamed. Was it?
Oliver North, not an
Mr.
unnamed.
North, I forgot. No, there is an unnamed.
Oh, there's another.
There
Go
is.
ahead and quote it. You know, I'm just pulling off the headline.
But no, you're right. No, Oliver North. No, I think that's the important one.
Yeah,
the unnamed guy is just some stooge that they've got in there. But Oliver North, which is I find extremely surprising that they would roll this guy out now. At this time.
Okay, for those of you whose memory may be atrophying or just maybe too young, you have to remember the old Iran-Contra days. And it just so happens we were doing some research on that young man, that old man, that former colonel, and during the Iran-Contra, when they tried to contravene the U.S. government, who said you're not going to sell any arms to the anti-Sandinistas in Nicaragua way back, under Ronald Reagan's reign, almost reign, Oliver North and his cohorts in the White House and in the clandestine part of the military, the rogue group, I think they were called, because they were circumventing the laws of the land, and they basically were actually peddling drugs and selling arms, and were part of that, just dumped the drugs into the inner city of Los Angeles and so on, so they could raise money to buy these arms, to sell to the Iran-Contra. And so it became known as the Iran-Contra affair. And a whole bunch of them actually got prosecuted. And some of them may have gone to jail.
Well, I know who didn't go to jail.
Well, I know, to get back to Mr. North, he was former Marine Corps Lieutenant Colonel and National Security Council aide, was convicted of destroying documents, accepting the gift of a $13,800 home security system, and abetting the obstruction of Congress. The judge, Gesell was his name, could have imposed a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison and fines of $750,000. Instead, he imposed a $150,000 fine, 2 years probation, a 3-year suspended sentence, and an order to perform 1,200 hours of community service. And so this guy is a convicted felon, but he became, due to his, quote, great notoriety in the, quote, defense of the country while obstructing congressional business, a Fox News contributor.
Yes, he did.
Might still be, for all I know. I haven't been paying attention to what his latest efforts have been, but this story about the super secret spy agency says Erik Prince, Oliver North. Prince, North are supposedly scheming to defeat, quote, the deep state with a private Trumpian spy squad. So, folks, we did a show 2 weeks ago talking about the country history of fascism and the fact that we're descended back into fascism again under this current presidency. Well, this now says that we've gone beyond descending into a state of fascism. We've got people in this White House who are actually trying to set up their own authoritarian way of doing business. Because when you try to circumvent your established intelligence organizations with a super secret spy network of your own, that means you're not reporting to anybody.
Absolutely. It reminds me of the Gestapo.
Okay, explain to our folk who...
Isn't that how that started under Hitler? The secret police. He had a secret police force that reported only to him. And if you know your history, you know what they were all about. They rounded up people, they detained people without cause, held them captive, killed them, did whatever they wanted to do, basically, because they only answered to one person, their dictator. And I can see this happening here.
Well, Erik Prince...
I can absolutely see this happening here.
Erik Prince, you were talking about the quote from his Blackwater days, what they were supposed to be providing under the Blackwater. Blackwater was a government contractor who was supposed to be doing security in Iraq during the Iraq War, but they were doing a bunch of other things. And basically, they were responsible for killing something like 13 civilians at an intersection at some point during the Iraq War. Some of their people were tried and actually convicted. And did get sentenced to jail time, but the head of Blackwater was Erik Prince. And for some reason, the head of the company that actually was responsible for this never went to trial and was never held responsible for that kind of atrocity done in the name of the U.S. government. So I guess he thinks because his last name is Prince, he's a prince, and he can circumvent all laws since he didn't get brought up on any charges on the death of those Iraqis. Well, so now he's going to form his own super secret spy. Blackwater changed his name from Blackwater to an outfit called XE, so that they could continue to get federal government contracts, because once you're convicted of doing bad things, supposedly you're no longer supposed to get federal contracts.
Well.
But guess what? Z seems to be still getting all kinds of federal contracts. Now, this guy's a confidant and an advisor. Well, they said he's a former advisor to the Trump White House. Yeah, right. So, what were they providing under their old Blackwater contracts?
They were a network that was. No, I've lost that page. But they were saying that they had a network of people that could provide surveillance, counter-surveillance, and even sabotage if necessary.
Yeah, well, okay. So I guess that makes him think he can set up his own spy agency. But
well, they were saying that they already have that in place. Blackwater had already had that in place.
The old company.
Whether they had ever utilized it or not, who knows?
Who knows, right.
But that's supposedly the team that would come together now if they were able to actually form this network.
Well, here's the quote from the article. When Prince was running Blackwater, he and a former CIA paramilitary officer, Enrique Prado, set up a global network of foreign operatives offering their deniability as a big plus for potential Blackwater customers.
Deniability is is one of the key words.
Okay, there. So they want to roll that back out and become their own super secret spy agency for the 45th president.
Right.
And his CIA director, who can't trust his CIA.
Right.
Okay, right. So yeah, it looks like we're rapidly becoming an authoritarian state, not a fascistic state, an authoritarian state, with people now getting their own spies and their own jackbooted folk to run the country the way they see fit. I'm beginning to really get depressed, folks.
You know what's also interesting is that there was talk, unconfirmed, that the White House was thinking about replacing Tillerson as Secretary of State with Pompeo. Now, if he is able to form this group, if that happens, and he becomes Secretary of State, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for the country? I mean, what kind of powers are these people going to have?
You know, that's a hypothetical question.
It's a hypothetical question.
But here's my question about that.
Something that may become a reality.
You think maybe once the Congress finds out about the super secret spy agency, they might decide they don't want to confirm Mike Pompeo? Not that the Republicans control House and Senate.
How many people have they confirmed that they have seen that
or
they
confirm Erik Prince's sister?
You know,
the incompetent.
I'm sorry, I no longer have any confidence that our government is going to do anything that provides any kind of protection for us.
Okay.
Based on what's happening.
Based on what's happening so far, you may be right. All right, so enough of just this White House and their crazy autocratic plans. There are other things happening that we need to at least take a quick look at. Two things.
In North Carolina.
Before we get to the cop story.
Yeah, I mean that was a good thing.
This political stuff that's brewing right now with Judge Roy Moore, the accused pedophile, pederast, whatever, the guy who's preying on 14-year-old girls. Okay. Who's going to run for the Senate? Who has the full backing of the Republican Party, by the way? So the guy who has been accused by 12 women of sexual assault and harassment, who's occupying the White House, personally called the guy who's actually been accused of molesting a 14-year-old and congratulated him on his efforts and tell him he definitely wants him to be in the Senate, okay?
Of course he wants him to be in the Senate. He needs his vote.
Yeah, right, but guess what? I guess if you're accused sexual harasser and assaulter and a self-admitted assaulter, then you don't care about somebody who assaults and
apparently it's all right if you're
14-year-olds. So, and the Republican Party seems to be
it's
happy
okay
with
with
it.
them. It's okay with them.
Yeah.
It's
But on the other hand, the Democrats are now telling Al Franken, and they have told Al Franken, you got to go. And Al Franken has decided, okay, I've done bad, and so it's not fair on my constituents, so I'm going to resign. Here's my question to Al Franken and those folk. Why is it you're willing to say, I'm going to resign my office because I've done bad things, which you may have done before you were in the office, or even while you were in the office, but you were never really accused of sexual harassment?
Absolutely, but
okay?
I'm not.
But even nuance-wise, okay?
Right.
Why are you resigning if the guy who's actually a self-admitted
that's what
assaulter?
I want to know. I want to know why people aren't going after him.
Why don't you wait
with
to resign
the same zeal that they're going after everybody
this guy
else?
resigns? So if it's about not being in office because you have been accused of and done bad things,
and Senator Franken has actually done something in Congress for the benefit of people.
No, I understand that.
I'm not saying he shouldn't be called to task.
I'm not saying that either. And this is a very interesting debate that folks have been having. But I'm saying to all you people out there, including you elected officials, whatever bad things you've done, if it stacks up to be the same as or less than the 45th president, then tell people you're not going to resign until he resigns. If you want it that way, have the same standard for everybody.
I agree.
And definitely don't put a child sexual molester in the U.S. Senate. That makes absolutely no sense. So, I don't know. How much time do we have? When did we start?
Who looks at the clock
anymore?
Okay.
We should have looked at the clock because
time no longer exists.
We're at the mercy of a coordinator who may or may not be back in time to take us out.
I hope he will.
Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't.
I really wasn't paying
attention. But the other good
to
story that we think is good, that we could segue to,
what's the gentleman's name? Slager?
Detective Scott Slager.
Officer
Scott Slager. We're back to the South Carolina story, which we on Media Watch covered to any length because it was another egregious example of a police officer actually killing a black motorist because the man had a broken taillight.
Yeah, Walter Scott.
Mr. Slager, the former police officer, actually stood in a target practice shooting stance because we've seen the video and we've seen the still photo, aimed his gun and fired how many shots?
Yeah, 5 shots in the back.
5 shots in the
back.
back.
5 landed, I don't know how many
there
shot.
may have been more. There may have been like 9, but 5 hit. And he was brought up on charges, and they never brought an indictment for murder or anything like that.
No, he was being held. He pleaded. I'm assuming that there had to have been a plea deal because what he was being held on until his sentencing was violation of civil rights, of Mr. Scott's civil rights.
Okay.
With 5 bullets in his back,
that's one way of violating someone's civil rights. You shoot him in the back and kill him. Okay.
Yeah, that's a violation of civil rights.
So the interesting thing is that dragged on for over a year.
It's over a year, yeah.
And we're taping on Thursday, and this particular Thursday, the Thursday before our Monday airing, the federal prosecutors actually got a jury to come back with a sentencing verdict of
19 to 24 years.
19 to 24 years.
Now, I hope that's not overturned on appeal, but
who knows?
We'll see what happens.
We'll see, because we've had discussions here before on people actually very rarely being charged, but once they get charged, they get off with suspended sentences and no jail time.
Well, so far he's going to jail.
We shall see.
But that's today. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
Only time will tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I am beginning to think that we're...
Well, we can sign off.
Well, I don't want to sign off too short, but we made the mistake of not watching the clock when we started this show.
Well, that's why we need Bob here.
Bob had another assignment, so he couldn't be with us. So, all right, look, I'm going to make a off the top of my head assessment that we've already done 27, 28 minutes or so, that maybe we may still be already.
Erik's waving to our crowded audience out there that they're clamoring for our autographs.
I'm just, I'm actually stretching in case we need to stretch, but I think we've already gone over. How much time? Where are we on time?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Oh, okay,
Yeah, right.
good. So we got one more story that we can actually wrap up in 3 minutes, and then go to our.
We have 2 minutes now.
Go to our side.
Okay.
2 minutes. Oh, okay.
Go
All right.
for it. Come on.
All right. So the other, doubling back, the other person who resigned after years of very good service, but just got caught up in
Conyers.
a sexual was Representative John Conyers.
I remember him well.
And the man has had a stellar
absolutely.
career.
Absolutely, and I'm
but
so surprised to hear these accusations.
You can't do stuff like he's accused of doing and get away with it anymore. They've gotten away with it for years. And so all the good deeds you've done, all the stuff that you really,
it's a shame.
really,
he was
it's
a
like
really good
going
congressman.
down the toilet because of these things. But again, I would say to the representative, he's already resigned, but I would say, yeah, I need to pay for what I've done, and I should step down. I will step down when this 45th president, who's done just as bad or worse, when he resigns.
I absolutely agree. Well,
that would be my statement.
In Conyers' case, I mean, he's not long for
No.
retirement anyhow.
He actually said, "I'm retiring." He didn't say, "I'm stepping down." He said,
because
I'm retiring.
The man must be in his 80s.
He is, I think, 80-something.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. When you retire under pressure for doing bad things, is just as bad as being fired for doing bad things.
Absolutely.
And so look, I guess maybe we're just about pretty much out of time. 10
seconds.
So this has been Media Watch. I'm your co-host, Erik Tait.
And I'm Raymond Peterson.
And we'll catch you the next time. And see us on Media Watch YouTube, EVT, Media Watch EVT.